When Ryan's when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind Around with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The 18 that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind Around for Monday night. Download a Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind Around for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind Raw here on the Post Wrestling Network. I'm John Pollock. Wai Ting is here with you. Wait, what are we going to do with that theme song when they move to Netflix?
Ooh. Might have to update it. Might have to call in a favor from Colby John.
Might have to.
If we can track him.
Colby used to be a regular caller.
Yeah.
Used to call us very much in tune every week and disappeared. I don't know. I hope he's doing well. I hope he's out there. I hope he's listening.
Colby, reach out, please. Just to let us know how you're doing. Yes. But it's going to be hard to just replace USA with Netflix. It doesn't exactly rhyme. So. Yeah,
and well, that's a problem for January, but not an issue in July. So here we are. I was going to ask you your weekend, but it was very similar to mine. I assume we had a very good time on Saturday at Wide Open for our listener hangout. We got to we chatted a bit about it on Sunday, but I had a very good time. Wai.
Me too. Honestly, we've done several of these. I tend to actually much prefer when they're free and there's no pressure on us to have to make up whatever we spend to try to rent the venue. Like the people at Wide Open were very accommodating on late notice for us and just packed the place, and from what I hear, they were very grateful. Or the bartender who was working there was very, very grateful for our people showing up. So thank you to everybody who made an appearance.
Yes, it was great to see so many listeners out. Old friends, new friends, everyone in between. We also, before we opened the doors wide open for everyone, we did record the Wrestling Media Summit. Wai. Multiple delegations of international wrestling media credentialed coming. We had to have an international meeting of the minds with Buffalo's Brandon Thurston, Ireland's Stephanie Chase, and of course, the Brit himself, Benno, joining us, along with the Hong Kong chapter of Wai Ting.
Pretty much covers it all. That's pretty much the whole world, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And me, the white dude from Canada.
Well, a very important demographic for us, I think.
Oh, yes. It's a very underserved demographic out there. Well, the five of us, I really enjoyed this, and we're going to be releasing this Sunday evening. We will be putting it out on the Post Wrestling feed for everybody. And we're also going to make it available if Brandon and Benno will be putting it out on their respective outlets as well. So it's about an hour or so chat going in many different directions, covering different aspects of the media and Wai Ting monitoring levels and running point while also having a microphone stuck into his face every so often.
You'll definitely hear a lot of ambient, especially because this was recorded while England was playing their semifinal game, and there's definitely a part in the conversation where
there was one guy that was so excited when the goal was scored, you would have thought that Sami Zayn just won the world championship.
Yes, that is right. Yeah. Have you been watching any of the soccer or football, I should say, for our international audiences?
I know that most people are watching it. This thing's it's doing incredible numbers, but no, I'm not following it at all.
I've only been watching it by listening to the people in my neighborhood. It's honestly unavoidable. I live in a Portuguese neighborhood, and anytime that they were playing, it felt like I was. I mean, it felt like the biggest thing in the world. And when they won, I mean, it's people honking their horns. It's I don't even know how to describe it. And then they lost. They lost in a penalty shootout. So it's been very quiet lately.
Well,
around here.
Yeah, that can be a good thing. Yes, there doesn't seem to be any kind of nationalistic pride going on in my area when it comes to soccer, though the volume has been very high last week and then today. it's summer is going to be a long summer.
Oh, you mean the volume just within
my house,
your home?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay.
my daughter Evie has decided that she now just wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning without fail. And she doesn't want to be up by herself. She needs everyone else to wake up with her. And if they don't wake up, it is like the waterworks come on. And she has developed this like screaming cry. And I'm not kidding. She cried today, like just with Max around, these two, like the slightest thing. And one of them is crying and then the other one's crying. And it was just,
jeez.
I'm just painting the picture.
You gotta be recording all this so that you can play it
No.
for her when she's an adult, and you need to let her know what it took to develop the person that she will become.
Yeah, she came into my office on Sunday, and she decided to just bang the table, and my coffee just flies everywhere, and I'm just like,
okay,
please.
You need to invest in some lids, I think, for those coffees. Maybe a nice resealable, vacuum sealed type of mug. They're not just great for kids; they're great for grown-ups as well.
Well, I'm thinking of transporting my office to my car. I'm going to install some AC, some Wai Ting AC in the car. And
you can have my car.
Oh man, I'm just gonna learn to do like voice to text, and that's how I'll do my updates for the summer. They'll just be audio updates all summer, and I'm just gonna drive around and talk. That's how.
At this rate, shall we expect a cameo from young Evie at some point during these podcasts? Is she going to just wake up earlier and earlier and earlier?
There could be a time for all we know.
She should just host the show. She wants to stay up, watch Raw.
She hosts all day long. Believe me, she has some incredible stamina. But it is like 5 a.m. till 8 p.m. just tour de force that is currently going on, and it wears me down a little bit. I am in adjusting mode at the moment. I'm trying to work through this.
Oh goodness,
it is a lot of chaos.
Okay, well,
on that note,
sorry.
Let's talk a bit about Money in the Bank. Not so much the event, but notes coming out of the event, WWE. This one generated a press release, so they had a lot to tout the success of, and they had announced on the broadcast that this was, in fact, the largest arena gate for a WWE show ever held in Canada. Now, this would not encompass all events in Canada because, of course, the two WrestleMania events at Skydome would not be figured into this, but regardless, this was still a huge weekend for them. It's interesting that the attendance figure that they are listing, they stated more than 45,000 fans attended the 4 events running Thursday through Sunday, including the Sami Zayn show. And if you go by WrestleTix, SmackDown, Money in the Bank, and Heatwave would be just over 45,000. So that it was like in sync. And WrestleTix, that's not including the Sami Zayn show, which would not have been a crazy number. Danforth Music Hall holds about 1,500 max, and I don't know how many people were there. I did hear it was like a good turnout for this, but it's not a number that's going to dramatically shift this. But this was like fairly on par with the WrestleTix estimate that they had. They also stated that it was the most watched Money in the Bank of all time, with viewership up 46% from last year's record-setting number. Now, it is worth noting that Peacock is now up to 34 million subscribers, and from the quarter last year where Money in the Bank held, it has since gained 8 million subs since that period last year. But still, like last year's show was the show at the O2 Arena in London, England, and you had that was the whole Bloodline Civil War match that they were promoting as well. But this year's show had a ton of interest attached to it as well.
Just you wait for next year, okay? When they get on Netflix and blow this Peacock number out the window. It's
man, the percentage increases are. I mean, those ones are going to be so ridiculous to put any kind. Like if they do the percentage year over year, I mean, what a joke! Like it's
of course they will. They've been doing this every time.
I know they are, but I mean, it's like it's even more so. But you're 100% right by next year. They also they trumpeted the merchandise, the best selling item was the Canadian themed Money in the Bank briefcase that we saw. I wonder, did you catch a glimpse
I
of
think
how
it was the blue one that they
Yeah.
had at the MLSE.
it was? Did
event.
you see how much a briefcase was going for?
I did. I could only imagine how much.
I don't know what the price was.
Oh.
I would think that's $100 briefcase.
I'm guessing it's more than
You
that.
think so? Yeah.
I have to
mean,
think.
maybe
Chat
I'm being-
room, if you happen to have,
Please,
seen
someone
the
let us
price,
know how much this was going
please.
for. We should give a price guess before someone tells us what it is. I'll stay with 100.
$250.
$200 for a briefcase.
It's heavy. It's metal.
Yeah,
you know?
You're right. Okay, well, we will see if someone conveys that to us. Well, it was a very successful weekend, and then you add in tonight's show in Ottawa. There were about 8,200 tickets, so I mean they topped 50,000 in the province over these shows, and they've also added the Undertaker show for SummerSlam. They're going to do it the day of, and I mean, just looking at the numbers that Brandon Thurston obtained from the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission, like that was a show that did a like $180,000 gate for off of less than 1,000 tickets sold. So it tells you like how priced these tickets are. And that's going to be happening the afternoon of SummerSlam. So you can go to SmackDown, you wake up, you go to the Undertaker show, and then you head over to Cleveland Browns Stadium and take in SummerSlam.
I think a lot of people will be choosing to do exactly that. Yeah, I mean, so the Sami Zayn comedy show was very much, I think, in line with the Undertaker one-man show as more shoulder programming that they're trying to add to all of these weekends now. So I guess it just makes you ask, what other who else has a show? Who else has like a stand-up thing, or like who else can get up on a stage and speak for like, I don't know, 2-3 hours and possibly be added towards a future PLE weekend.
What are all of your skills? Can everybody list them for us?
Yeah.
I mean, if Nigel McGuinness had stuck around with this company, we know what the one of the nights would have been.
It would be a magic show. I'm sure it would have been lovely. Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people with various talent on this roster. I could only imagine.
Did you get to see Heatwave?
I did. Yeah, great show.
I thought this was a really good show.
I thought it was better than Money in the Bank.
I did too. I thought it was interesting. Like I looked at the two shows, and here we have two 5-match events, and the difference in length was, I mean, Money in the Bank clocked in around, I think it was like 3 hours and 16 minutes, and this was like 2:25. Now, Money in the Bank also had that big Cena segment, and there was a big block that Heatwave did not. But this was, I mean, if you were someone that complains about the pacing of a WWE main roster show, and there is a lot of bulk attached to those shows, this NXT show was just like it just went so smoothly. You also had a wide variety of matches as well, and I thought the tag match was just excellent. Nathan Frazier and Axiom defeating Andre Chase and Duke Hudson, and I know that Nathan Frazier consistently gets so much praise in these big matches. I thought this was one of Duke Hudson's better performances. He was just a great base for these two throughout. And Andre Chase, I've always enjoyed this character from the 2.0 era. I just think, I don't know if it's got a main roster aspiration to it, if it would necessarily succeed, but at this level, I think he's a really great character. And when he broke out that Canadian Destroyer, those final minutes, that crowd was unglued for the near falls. Like, I just thought the tag match was it was my match of the show, but there were a lot of high points to this show. I thought this was one of the better NXT big shows that they've done.
Felt so too. I thought every
of this
match
era.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people suggest that it might be the best one since the change to 2.0. I don't know if I would come up with maybe a better selection myself. But it was, I think, really strong. In particular, I thought both women's matches really delivered. Especially like Sol Ruka and Lalani. I felt like
sorry, Kalani Jordan and
Kalani
Sol Ruka.
Jordan. Yes, sorry. Yeah. They went out there and both, yes, very inexperienced in green, but they used their gymnast athleticism to their full advantage and created, I think, something a lot of people are calling like the female version of Ricochet and Will Ospreay. I think for like two relatively inexperienced people to garner that sort of buzz and to execute something that is very physically demanding and almost impossible in some cases, I was very impressed.
I thought that match and that match has received a lot of focus, and I think that yes, you can see these are two women with about 60 matches apiece in their entire careers. Like, yes, there is inexperience, and I think 2 years from now these two do that match, and it's that much more advanced. But I'm finding more and more I am leaning a lot towards kind of your kind of feel towards a lot that I'm looking for things that stand out in an interesting way. That match was totally different on this show, and yes, it was very much like a certain routine, but like the athleticism you were seeing in this match was off the charts. And I'm just watching like these two, like this is the developmental brand, and where these two, I'm just thinking like in 2 years, if these two stay healthy, like I think this match is going to be like the introduction for a lot of people to these two women. If you're not a consistent viewer of the two, and then you had the main event as well, like a very surprising outcome with Ethan Page winning, doing so in the fluke manner, and probably sets up him and Trick Williams for that Great American Bash special coming up in a couple of weeks. But in this match, it's not my match of the show, but I thought in that one, Javon Evans, I just think like this guy, his charisma is just such a, like, he's a great performer. He's only 20 years old. But if you see him, like he has a charisma about him that is very, very special. And I thought he, in this role, like here he is working in front of 10,000 people in a main event setting. I thought he was great in this match, and you had kind of like the veterans in there in your Sean Spears and Ethan Page, and I think a genuinely surprising outcome too. I don't think too many people were expecting a title change period in this, much less Ethan Page.
Well, they're certainly going a lot further with Ethan Page than I predicted when they announced that he would be joining the brand. I mean, for somebody, I guess, who is more of a veteran, somebody who didn't come in with, I think, the biggest stock out of AEW to enter immediately the title picture and to actually win the championship. Yes, we know the means in which he won the championship, but we know exactly what it's setting up for Trick Williams to. He's very likely becoming a transitional champion for Trick to win it. But I mean, that's a wonderful role for him. And I think something like this assures that he's going to get called up into the main roster, which I wasn't necessarily expecting 100%, at least when he announced that he'd be coming to NXT. So I think he's proven his abilities really well thus far on this roster. And now Trick Williams has an actual, like, very threatening veteran threat, to oppose. But up and down this card, I just think, like, if the purpose of NXT is to be developmental, to get your next level talents ready for the main roster, like this, they've done a great job of that, and this 5-match card, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I guess, if you include the kickoff, like, did a great job of showcasing people that are on the cusp or already ready for that next level.
I think it's also a big positive for many reasons. That, and I wouldn't do this for every single WWE premium live event monthly, but I would say like 4 times a year that you have the NXT show on the Sunday, and you're going to get that many more people, and to have a Javon Evans that gets to wrestle in front of these many people, this is a huge learning experience for your Kalani Jordans and your Sol Rukas and your Javon Evans. And
you can see like almost everybody come out and take that deep breath, before they're walking out, because I mean, I think it's still novel for a lot of them to wrestle
for 80% of the people on this show. This is like the biggest match of their careers that they're having, which is just something you can't replicate with a WWE main roster show like Money in the Bank. Yeah, it's the big show of the month, but this is not, for most, it's not going to be, that level of gravity. And I always enjoy those shows when these people are put in big positions and you can just see the business that they did, that you picked the right markets. This makes a whole lot more sense to me than the Apex, even with, like, I don't know what the breakdown is of that, but even going on your own like I just think multiple times per year to piggyback off the big show, it's only a benefit of, and there's the product's hot at the moment, and you can do like the idea that an NXT 2.0 3 years ago could even go on the road, much less draw this. You could not have, like, that was the thought. Like, you can't even take them on the road because of where this thing had fallen, and now this is, you know, a company that has really like resurrected and found itself.
Yeah.
So it's a very good show on Sunday, capping off their couple of nights in
Full review out right
Toronto.
now in our feed from our friends at Up Next, who are joined by John Cena, actually.
That's right. It's up on the feed now if everyone wants to check that out. One man who is not going back to NXT is Bobby Stevenson, a.k.a. Damon Kemp, who announced that he is no longer under contract to WWE and indicated that he will be free to go elsewhere August the 12th. So that would be in line with NXT talent having 30-day no-competes, and you would think like they've told him that your contract is up on July 12th and we're not going to be renewing it. So he went public with that disclosure. He had wrestled just 2 weeks ago on TV, losing to Tavion Heights, which the way they've been setting it up, it almost makes you think that Tavion Heights is going to be replacing him in the no quarter catch crew. But this is the second member of the group not to have their deal renewed after Drew Gulak. And as I mentioned, he's 25 years old. He is actually the older brother of Gable Steveson and went much further in the system than Gable did. Like, he was sort of just like, there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare when he was signed as opposed to his brother, but got a whole lot more and just in terms of matches, and was there for 3 years time. And I don't know if there's more to this story other than, you know, people that you're going to see at the NXT level that they've been there 3 years. And I brought this question up with Shawn Michaels. I was asking about Drew Gulak and Gable Steveson, but his answer was about, you know, the idea that, you know, there's some people we look, do they have main roster potential? And if not, then it's time to move on. And perhaps that was just the conclusion they made on Damon Kemp, which you look, he has a lot of the building blocks there. But he's not someone necessarily you're watching the show and is he of your top 5 guys when it comes to potential. I don't know if he's in anyone's top 5, and those are the decisions they're going to be making at the NXT level.
And without his brother entering the system, I think the marketability and maybe storytelling potential certainly decreases a whole lot less. And at that point, you're just kind of putting him into a race with all the other incredible talents that are at that PC. And there are a lot of people that are advancing at a very fast rate.
And he will, if he continues, he can at least be under his real name. Damon Kemp will be left behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, do you see a future? Well, I guess
it's hard. It's always a crapshoot when you're seeing these people that had no prior wrestling experience before they got to WWE NXT. It's like, are you looking at a career in pro wrestling? You've dedicated 3 years to it. And you're someone that's, you know, he was at the University of Minnesota. It's a very different world when suddenly you're, you know, going to get booked on, you know, independent shows if that's where you're starting out at. I don't know if I don't think he's at a level where an AEW would be going after him. So it's he's young enough. He could certainly do it. Mm-hmm. But I mean, maybe he's going to look towards MMA. Maybe he's going to try and get onto the Buffalo Bills.
I don't know. I don't know if the last name will get him there.
All right. Last things here. Tuesday night's NXT. They have announced Tony D'Angelo against Lexis King for the Heritage Cup. The OC, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows taking on Out the Mud. We will see if the Machine is behind the OC in this match.
Yes.
Like it is behind Ethan Page. Wolfgang and Mark Coffey against Tyreek Igwe and Tyson DuPont after they held it off last week. Ariana Grace and Carmen Petrovich after their pre-show win falling apart, and they will now have a singles match. Sol Ruka against Fallon Henley. Wes Lee will address his future, and we get a sit down with Brooks Jensen and what problems he's going through online. And Sean's going to try and help him.
And a tease of Joe Hendry in the promos.
Oh, we skipped over that. Yeah, that was the closing shot at Heatwave was of Joe Hendry, and obviously coming back after a very successful appearance last month. And then Dynamite in Calgary is the show with the 2 finals of the Owen Hart Cup. Danielson against Hangman Page. who had a terrific match with Jay White on Collision, and Willow Nightingale against Mariah May. We will have a Stampede street fight between Samoa Joe and Chris Jericho, a four-way match involving Claudio Castagnoli, Tomohiro Ishii, Pac, and Kyle Fletcher, an international four-way, just because, and appearances by Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a pick, Paige and Danielson?
I think Hangman and Mariah May are winning the tournaments. Those would be my thoughts.
I think so too. Paige cut a hell of a promo. I don't think this actually aired on
It was a
Collision.
digital exclusive.
Yeah, hell of a promo. Just
and Jeff Jarrett's going to be the ref of that match.
Special enforcer.
Enforcer.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're really hitting the Swerve and Paige feud very hard, and I think Brian is a sentimental favorite, but I mean I think all signs point to, in my opinion, Paige getting that. He makes some great points. Why are we cheering for the guy who invaded the home of his child? He had to move.
Did they people were tracking down his home?
Well, he doesn't want to stay at a place where Swerve knows.
Well, how did Swerve know it to begin with? How did he find the house to begin with? Was Hangman broadcasting his address?
That I don't know. You'd have to ask Swerve. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, before we get to our interview coming up here, we do have an announcement to make. It is G1 season, and that means the return of Post Wrestling's G1 Climax Contest. You can find it right now at postwrestling.com/G1, which is also the place where you'll find the home of all of our coverage. Thank you so much, Chris Engler, again, for volunteering your time. He is graciously set up the Google Doc for all of us to be able to fill it in and follow our picks, and will constantly update us throughout the days. So get your entries in before the Thursday, July the 18th at 11:59 p.m. So you have a little bit of time, 10 days to do your research and fill out your forms. Get your entries in. Winners will receive merch courtesy of chop-tees.com/postwrestling.
Yeah, it's free to enter. Just insert all of your picks. It is a little time consuming, but definitely fun to follow along. I think this year is going to be one of the tougher G1s to predict. You don't have that automatic pick that some years has. I think this is one where it could go many different directions. So I think predictions are going to be all over the map. So we'll keep people updated as we are doing the G1 podcast throughout July and August on the cafe.
Or you could just randomly choose and probably do just as well as many of us. Yeah.
Yes. Will you be entering?
Of course I will. Will you?
Probably. Yes.
We got it. I got to try for C block this year. A legitimate C block return.
Well, we are now going to hear from our interview. This was conducted what day was it? Friday, when we were at a WWE event here in downtown Toronto. You heard our interview with LA Knight, and now we are going to hear from one of the participants in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Here is my conversation with Chelsea Green. So Chelsea, we are going into Money in the Bank weekend. Obviously, a big spotlight on this event every year. I want to contrast this to a number of years ago when you and four others were going into the first Queen of the Mountain match, and it really felt like the five of you really going out there to prove yourselves. How is the mindset this time for this ladder match for yourself? Are you looking at this more personally, or are you looking at this as similar in that regard?
I mean, at the end of the day, work is work, and I'm here to win. And so I'm going into Money in the Bank the exact same way I went into Queen of the Mountain, which is a winner. I've got the winning mindset, the winning mentality, and I'm here in the motherland, so how could I not win?
Tell me a bit about the transition you had to go through when Sonya Deville went down with the injury and moving to Piper Niven, giving a new identity to the team and that pivot you had to make.
Well, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I'm going to succeed with whoever I'm paired with, but I think what a lot of people don't realize is first, I was with Carmella. Of course, she was pregnant. Then I was put with Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville and I, we already had history. We already liked each other from Tough Enough. And then when I was paired with Piper Niven, I had an even more extensive history with her. So it was actually a very easy transition because Piper and I were friends. And that makes a huge difference going into a tag team. You need to trust your partner. So I feel like I've had it easy because all these girls I've had an actual personal connection to.
over your past 10 years now, have you had a chance to reflect? Like, you have been through so many interesting situations, working for various companies. Are you in a mindset in your career now where anything that's thrown my way, I can handle it and make it work?
Honestly, yes. And I think the difference now between even 2 years ago is after being released from WWE, you realize I love work. I love being here. But I need to enjoy my life outside of work too. I need to make sure my home life is good. My relationships are good with my family and friends. I've got dogs, I've got cats. Like, all that stuff is what matters. At the end of the day, I go to work, I have fun, I do my job, but I still have to clock out, And that's just what I keep reminding myself. So that's a new mentality I've come in the past 2 years with.
Last question from me. I want to ask about someone you know very well, and that's Britt Baker, who spoke this week about what she's been through over the past year. Did you get to see her interview on TV this week?
No.
Were you aware of what she'd been going through this past year?
I don't know what she spoke on. I mean, she's obviously my friend, so I know personally what she's told me, but I don't know what she said on TV, no.
Well, she just told us about the medical issue. She went through a mini stroke that she had to deal with, and pretty much, it kept it very quiet. I was just curious if you had seen what she had been going through privately.
So I knew all that, and obviously as a friend, I'm here for support, whatever she needs. She lives very close to me, so if she ever needed to call me, she could. But at the end of the day, you got to take care of your health at home with the people that love you, and I think that's what she did, and I'm so happy she took care of herself.
All the best this weekend, Chelsea. Thanks so much for the time.
You.
Appreciate it. All right. That was Chelsea Green chatting with us before Money in the Bank, where it's going to be very interesting as well how they follow that match with Chelsea Green. She got the big bump at the end of the show, and I think that's going to be something, like, certainly in that arena. She was one of the favorites, like one of the more popular people on the show. And if they feel the need to maybe ride some of that, or you could go the total comic route where she is like out of body cast the next time we see her on TV after that fall. Like, I'm sure they're going to play this up in some way, whether it be, going a more serious direction with her, or really leaning into the Chelsea Green character that they have been utilizing for months and months.
Yeah. So over the past few days, there has been a rumor that secondary championships might be coming for the women's divisions in the WWE. I don't really see Chelsea as, at this point, somebody who's such a comedic figure. I don't see her going after a Liv Morgan or Rhea Ripley championship. I don't see her even going after like a the Bayley's championship yet. But a secondary championship for somebody in her position who's gaining so much momentum and so much, I think, goodwill from the audience who sees this person come out every single week and do her best to entertain everybody, I think is a perfect role for her. So I don't think the reaction in Toronto was just a local reaction. Of course it helped, but I also think audiences around the world at this point see the performer that she is and probably want to see her achieve a level of success like similar to what we provided for LA Knight, playing that more sort of like mid-card role for a long time, but because they're so talented, just kind of gets elevated organically. I think she's definitely in that position.
Yeah, like when you're looking at her career, like, she's been doing this for 10 years, and for most, they may remember that first appearance she had on Raw as the physical therapist for Daniel Bryan. And that's like, I'm talking like 6 weeks into her career. She's in this angle on Raw.
Is that before or after Tough Enough?
That was before Tough Enough. The next year she does Tough Enough. But when you look at the different tenures she's had in WWE, in NXT, and going out, doing the Laurel Van Ness character in TNA, doing Reclusa in Lucha Underground, the injury she's had along the way, and just as she detailed in there, starts the team with Carmella, then they have to pivot to Sonya Deville, then the Piper Niven. It's why I brought up, like, she has been throwing like a lot of different, just plans that have changed, and she has become one of those people, I think, that you rely on, that is going to be able to make do with and make work what is there. But I mean, it's very interesting to look at. She was on the very first All In card in 2018. Like, you don't realize all these different things that she has done in these 10 years. The whole like Matt Cardona run in GCW that she did in between WWE stints as well. So
And being called upon to do a lot of media over the past weekend as well.
she was one of the main people out there doing a lot of the local media in the lead up to Saturday. So we'll have one more chat on Wednesday with Carmelo Hayes. So that will be coming out. But yes, Wai mentioned like there are rumors there of potential secondary championships out there for the women. And, you know, could it be a women's US championship? Could it be a women's championship representing any other country? I don't know. They could have a whole drop-down menu of countries that you could select from. And one place we know that has all countries represented, that is our good friends at NordVPN.
As wrestling fans, we now have access to more events than ever before. But with rising ticket and travel costs, subscription fees, and a growing number of pay-per-views, staying up to date can get expensive, which is why we love telling our audience about NordVPN. In the US, ordering Forbidden Door will cost you $50, but directing your NordVPN to the UK or Australia immediately unlocks cheaper international prices, allowing you to purchase the event at half the price. Using NordVPN, you can also sign up for AEW Plus, which grants you an even bigger discount on AEW's pay-per-views and access to editions of Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision live or on demand, commercial-free. Nord continues to give post-wrestling listeners an exclusive offer of 4 bonus months on top of all 2-year plans when you sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling. That's less than $3 a month for their basic plan. And just for this period, they're sweetening the deal with global eSIM service Saley, offering up to 20 gigabytes of travel data available for use in over 150 countries. Sign up at nordvpn.com/postwrestling to get your bonus months and free Saley data voucher, 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied. Again, nordvpn.com/postwrestling. Let Nord know you found them through us.
Let them know. All right, on to Raw we go from the nation's capital, Wai, Ottawa, Ontario, at the Canadian Tire Center.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Canadian Tire
I
represented.
didn't know they had a center. Well, good for Canadian Tire.
Yeah, they're trying to keep up with Rogers when it comes to naming.
Oh, good luck
naming
with
rights.
that. That's not happening.
It's tough. You got to start somewhere. So WrestleTix reporting.
Can you spend your Canadian Tire money to maybe get tickets?
I never wanted that Canadian Tire money. I never understood like I understood what the purpose of it was, but I was like, no, I don't want Canadian Tire money. I want real money, please.
Yeah.
They try to give you change in Canadian Tire money. I'm like, no.
I know.
It'd be like going to Starbucks and it's like, instead of giving you $15 back, you want a gift certificate instead? No.
Don't. They give you they give you real change and then they give you more in the form of Canadian Tire money, right? They're not giving you Canadian Tire money in lieu of change, right?
As I recall, and I'm not a frequent Canadian Tire shopper, was that you could like mix it. It was like you could have a choice of like it works out. Yeah, they're not like it's not a straight cash transfer, but it is. Yeah, I never. I'm not trying to
double the value in Canadian Tire money.
I'm not trying to figure out the Canadian Tire currency.
Canadian Tire money, I guess, is like fun for kids. You know, here's like a 10-cent bill.
You know what's not fun for kids? Canadian Tire. Like no kids say, "Can we go to Canadian Tire today?"
Oh, they got some great stuff for kids at Canadian Tire.
It's fine. It's fine. It's not a kid's store per se.
They've got like hockey. Okay, we're spending too much time on
8,200 people according to WrestleTix, and the return of Pat McAfee.
Mm-hmm.
Having to cross the border for his return. Mm-hmm. And CM Punk is starting out the show. He congratulates John Cena on his retirement. Would love to have one more match with him. And Drew McIntyre is not here tonight because he got suspended, and they air the angle from the post show where Drew is running up to the desk and ended up elbowing Adam Pearce in the face. And Punk remarks, the ratings just took a dip because Drew was on the screen. So looking at those minute by minutes, Punk says that there is a consequence for your actions, and CM Punk is the consequence for all of Drew's stupid actions. As long as he's breathing, Drew will never be champion, and he himself was fined $25,000 for his attack at Money in the Bank, but it was money well spent. And then he asks Adam Pearce if he can lift Drew McIntyre's suspension so that he can get his hands on Drew McIntyre. This guy maybe needs to go into the Swerve Strickland playbook and figure out where Drew McIntyre lives. Track down his address.
Yeah, or the LA Knight playbook at this point.
That's right. LA Knight has figured out home addresses. That's a go-to for him. Yeah. Seth Rollins comes out instead, and Punk just goes over to sit on the commentary area because he knows this entrance is going to be very long, and it was. Rollins tells him, get into the ring, or are you scared I'm going to kick your ass? So Punk warns him, watch what you say. And Rollins says, actions have consequences. That applies to everyone in your life, Punk, except you. And says that you did the one thing I warned you not to, sticking your nose in my business. Punk says, I was handling my own business, and mentioned that there is a man walking around with my bracelet, which certainly needs context if you don't know the story. And he explained that this bracelet has his wife and dog's name on it. And he does not have an issue with Seth Rollins, but refers to his quest to become a champion a pipe dream. And I guess he's working up the task of apologizing, but it felt like Punk just totally lost his train of thought in the middle here.
Could have been, but I think the effect of it felt very true to the Phil Brooks character of being very reluctant and finding it very difficult to get an apology out of his mouth.
Well, you had like that live TV moment where to cover, like everyone's just trying to get in their witty like line to cover for it, and that's what it felt like here. But it could have just been Phil digging deep here into the acting traits, and he apologizes to Seth Rollins. Rollins says, but then as soon as he apologizes and you think he's being sincere, he then has to get in his line, but because it's you, I can't be that sorry. And Rollins accuses him of gaslighting, stating you've never apologized to anyone in your life, calls him the king of propaganda and the dumbest smart dude I've ever met, which even confused Punk. And the world does not revolve around you, Punk. You can burn bridges elsewhere. And I was going to let it slide because I'm above you. You don't matter to me. But I couldn't let it slide after Saturday. It's not a pipe dream to me to become champion. And in turn, I am going to take from you. And once you're cleared, you won't even be able to say Drew McIntyre's name before I snap your arm again and put you back on the shelf. Because, Punk, actions have consequences.
Mm-hmm. These two had excellent chemistry in their build up to WrestleMania for a match that unfortunately never happened, but that chemistry continued here. I just like that interaction pre-Mania. There's something about CM Punk's presence that unlocks a different level within Seth Rollins as a promo. Like a promo like this from Rollins makes it feel like, all those criticisms of like us saying this guy is too much ha ha ha. It makes that feel like it's a long time ago, because this is Rollins like feeling his most genuine, and maybe it comes across because he maybe really has these feelings about Phil Brooks and CM Punk. I thought his entire critique of Punk was wonderful here. It did a great job of, I think, encapsulating the public perception that some of us might have of Phil Brooks through all of these controversies that he's been a part of through the years. What did you and I say, John, like when we were reviewing that Cabana podcast in retrospect? Like we said a lot of these very similar things. This is how Phil Brooks as a character sometimes comes across. Like he tends to perhaps have he has a lot of things to complain about. He's very passionate and he makes a lot of great points, but the points are rarely reflective upon himself. And so Rollins was able to take that and use it in this promo to make it sound like a really real criticism of the guy. And whether or not if it was intentional, Punk stammering in trying to apologize, I thought it added a lot to show, just even within Phil Brooks himself, a certain character flaw that he has. He can't, it's really, really hard for him to say sorry. Even when he does say sorry, he has to add a little dig in there to, because he's got way too much pride. So I thought this whole interaction added a whole lot of depth to certainly the relationship that these two have, a lot of depth to the character of CM Punk, because it shows you he does have a character flaw that, at least as a character right now on screen, he is admitting to. So it paves the way, I think, for a certain level of like growth for Phil Brooks later on, maybe a growth even in the relationship between these two later on. I find the timing of it interesting because like Punk and Drew is so hot, yet now I'm kind of being distracted by the shiny new toy in Rollins and Punk again. But it's the type of thing where like I'm still interested in Drew and Punk. I'm still interested in even like the thing I wouldn't be interested in necessarily would be a three-way. But if they're doing the thing right now where they're building one program only to build up like the next program at the same time, I'm down for it. I thought this was very captivating.
Well, it was a 20-minute opening segment here between CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and would be the last we would see of either of them on the show. But big start to the show. Pierce is in the back with Dominik. He does not want to team with Liv Morgan tonight, but he went onto the website and realized he's in a main event tag match. And Pierce explains Liv requested it, it's official, and it's happening. And Liv walks in and says she's doing this for Dominik. And Dom just says, you better make sure that we win tonight. First match is Jey Uso.
And that they're nuggies.
Yes.
Attendees.
Yeah, I guess we could have some merchandise coming, potentially. Jey Uso against Chad Gable is our first match. Gable is selling the big fall from the rung above the ring with his ribs taped up. And Gable, still using his wrestling, though, gets a takedown using cross faces, and then Jey hip tosses him to the floor, and Gable catches him on the floor after a dive attempt and belly to bellies him on the floor. We come back. Gable goes for a headbutt off the top, which is never good for the ribs, and he starts selling them. Jey lands a suicide dive, hip attack, and then is knocked off balance off the top. Gable applies the ankle lock when the lights go down for the Wyatts. And as we've got at least a set of the lights still on, so we can see Jey spear Chad and quickly win in 7:19. Gable is left laying from this spear as the dry ice engulfs the ring, and Nikki Cross appears with her box of more tapes. Never seen someone with so much VHS extra tapes than Nikki Cross.
Other than John Pollock.
Yeah, I mean, but I would also use up very wasteful.
Well, maybe they're getting the tapes back from WWE later on so that they can redub over it.
Yeah, these are 3-minute segments, and they're using these full tapes.
Probably using SP, not EP.
So Nikki hands the box to Pat McAfee, which Cole reminds us has been addressed to Pat the last 2 weeks, but this is the first time he's been there to receive the box of tapes. And that was our Wyatt Sicks segment. Well, we will get the video message later for tonight, as we have Prime just in the background here, just to set the mood.
Yeah, not much to speak of, unfortunately, with the match itself. This just kind of really felt like background to lead to the Wyatt segment later on. Probably playing a factor for both of these men in Chad Gable and Jey Uso.
Do you think at all that it was done purposefully that Jey Uso was the person here, that Gable's got this paranoia that it's about him, but it gets revealed that it's not him that they are referring to?
Yeah, I think Jey Uso to me has always been the leading candidate of their sort of targeting anyway. So the fact that he was in this match with Chad Gable that really didn't have any other reason to exist tells me that that's what they're trying to direct us to.
So instead of going to break, we just cut to black and we go to Jackie Redmond with Sheamus, and Sheamus has to say, that was weird. And we go right into our next segment.
It always comes across better when they go right to commercial break and don't have to have anybody react to this, you know?
Yeah, instead of, ooh, that's like the QR codes that they had to react to. And we're celebrating Sheamus's 15-year anniversary as a wrestler in WWE, mind you. He says that the young guys can't take shortcuts. He gets interrupted by Bronson Reed. He says, I don't know why we're celebrating. You lost that match 15 years ago. And Sheamus, you're stuck in the past. So right after Bronson Reed explains he has a match tonight, Sheamus challenges him to a match, and Bronson basically says, yeah, I'm already booked in a match, so maybe another time. I'm going to destroy your mate, Pete Dunne. So next is Bronson and Pete Dunne, where they note that Tyler Bate is not there because he is injured. So they had a nice match here. Dunne is stomping the hand of Bronson and stomps the elbow. Then Reed captures him with a buckle bomb into a spinning Liger bomb for a 2 count. And then Reed is stopped on the top with an enziguri. Dunne gets tossed off the turnbuckle and hit by the tsunami in 7 minutes and 17 seconds. Reed continues the attack, goes for another tsunami when Sheamus runs down. Dunne assists, and a brogue kick sends Bronson out of the ring, and Sheamus puts his arm around his long-lost brawling brute, but Dunne rejects it. No.
He found his dog.
Yeah, he found his, he was not man's best friend here because he just shrugged off Sheamus, and Cole explains, there's a story here because Sheamus had the audacity to get injured and left the Brawling Brutes. And now Tyler Bates hurt. Pete Dunne, his feelings he's been rejected, and Ridge Holland has gone off to Chase University. Mm-hmm. You ruined us, Sheamus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, I wonder if so I have to imagine the the Bate injury to be a legitimate thing. And what exactly was like Pete Dunne's role if that didn't happen? You know, was he always going to be involved with Sheamus here? But nonetheless, I'm glad he actually has a storyline because he I guess was doing NXT with New Catch Republic. This is a much more obviously I don't know.
Are these two
interesting role?
Are these two the toughest characters to envision having some heart-to-heart discussion about a friendship that has been fractured? Hey, fella. Like, I cannot imagine these two having like that serious, like heart-to-heart segment where Dunne he's been betrayed by this man who was injured, and Sheamus like coming back with like some serious response. I don't know. We will see. Really?
I think you're gonna see exactly that. Yeah. Okay. I'm happy for Pete Dunne to actually get a real storyline, and we'll see what they do here with Sheamus. It almost feels like Reed is like the person being left out of all of this, but I imagine he'll have a number of matches too. They continue to book him really strong, but they've yet to really do a whole lot of interesting stuff with him as a character.
Judgment Day is in the back, and Rollins walks up. He wants to speak to Damian Priest, so he shoos away his underlings and tells Damian Priest that you were very lucky, but you're also very good, and you kept your word about keeping Judgment Day out of the match. Therefore, I will keep my word. I won't come for your title as long as you are champion. But says you have to be better than that at SummerSlam. And Priest then says, yeah, that whole thing we said before, forget about it. Who cares? I'm going to throw out our gentleman's agreement. And after I beat Gunther, then we can go to war whenever you want. And they shake hands.
Yeah.
So does this absolve CM Punk from getting his arm shattered now? Because he's cost him nothing now.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know why Rollins was so mad at Punk to begin with, because Punk actually like was attacking Drew, so Punk prevented Drew from winning the championship. Rollins really should be mad at Drew, not Punk. Like Punk just actually kind of like extended the match by costing Drew the victory. Right. So what exactly is Rollins so upset about with CM Punk?
Maybe Rollins had everything under control with Drew and Priest, and then really? Punk screwed up his plan.
He was just going to go in and break up the pinfall that I guess whatever. It was a sequence between Drew and Priest, but that Punk interrupted. But somehow Rollins is really mad at CM Punk. We're not supposed to maybe think about that so much, but this segment I actually quite enjoyed. You know, first it continues to push Priest as this noble babyface, not wanting to cut corners and wanting to earn respect through legitimate means. And second, it actually adds a little bit of suspense to Priest versus Gunther, because they're already building a match for Priest, a title defense for Priest beyond Gunther. So at least it makes that match a little bit harder to predict. And third, there was no mention or no attempt to cover up the botched pinfall at all on this show.
Well, that's this picture here. This should have been accompanied by, "I did pin you on Saturday."
They made no mention of it. They're acting as if it never happened. But I think to an audience who might be looking for some explanation, I think doing this with Priest satisfies maybe those criticisms, because it's Priest now proposing a rematch to Rollins. Which is, I think, what would have happened anyway if they were to acknowledge that disputed finish, right? You know, referee didn't miss the call, or like referee screwed up, therefore I'm going to grant you a rematch. He didn't use those words, and I think that's just because WWE feels it's not worth like admitting that mistake to that degree. But the promise of a rematch to redo the match, I think at least satisfies, and it maybe even subconsciously addresses some of that. But again, it's all making Priest to be like a strong babyface champion here.
Sami Zayn was out. Big reaction here in Ottawa. And he's happy.
Priest is also on the phone with somebody.
Oh, he gets a phone call and basically is indicating that somebody is on their way. And I think everyone kind of figured what the show closing moment was going to be with several of these teases throughout the night.
Yeah, and chat room is informing me right now that we must have missed this. Some line was said about a referee screwing up between Priest and yeah.
Okay, in this segment,
I guess so.
Okay. Sami Zayn comes out. He is proud to be here in the nation's capital and discusses the match with Braun Breaker and made the mistake of thinking he was the underdog. I am not an underdog anymore. I'm a champion. And he says he has earned respect over the years. Breaker didn't show that respect. So Braun comes out and just stares at him for the longest time. And Braun explains, there's no reason for me to receive a rematch. And he goes to speak, and then boom, he just spears Zayn. And until the officials come down to break things up, and then Breaker is brought to the floor. He sprints around this ring. This time the leapfrog doesn't come. He spears Sami on the floor. Ilja comes down, Sami Zayn's good pal, and checks on Zayn. And then they make a match for later with Braun Breaker and Ilja Dragunov. I just look at this, and it was almost as though we're going to continue this feud, and we're just going to continue it. It was almost as though everyone was stating on Saturday that, man, it was just such a clean ending to it. There's not a whole lot, and yet you can always continue programs. I don't know. This one was just literally they put the words in his mouth. Yeah, there's no reason I should get another title shot, so I'm just going to beat you up.
So if this is a direct way of just, if next week they say Sami Zayn, comes out and says Braun, you want a rematch? I'm going to give it to you. Or I challenge you, Braun. That, I think it's such a predictable way at this point to get to a rematch in the WWE, or just maybe even in wrestling in general. And I would be disappointed in that lack of creativity. We just saw this happen with AJ. Guy loses a match clean, just gets another match via attack. Creatively, I think they could do
that one was a lot more creative, though. I mean, with the whole fake retirement and everything, yeah. I think they did a really great job with that. And this one was more so just, we're going to do the bare minimum to just continue this one.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Maybe it's leading, so it could be leading to a 3-way.
Yeah, there's that option too that they've kind of introduced here with Ilja attached to things. Mm-hmm. Finn Balor, JD McDonough, and Carlito against Braun Strowman, R-Truth, and The Miz. So R-Truth and the Miz are doing Cena spots, and I imagine R-Truth is going to be just ramping up the Cena stuff over these next months, maybe 18 months. This guy's probably going to get a whole new lease on life with this Cena retirement.
Oh man, yeah, that's a long run. Mm-hmm.
Truth does a 5-knuckle shuffle and an AA to Carlito. JD is tossed out of the ring, and then there's a double shoulder tackle by Braun Strowman taking out Carlito and Balor, and he does the freight train spot with R-Truth arm in arm running around the ring. This looked totally ridiculous. And then R-Truth is distracted as Miz is in the corner, and he gets nailed with the shotgun dropkick and a coup de grace as Balor pins R-Truth, and Miz is looking very frustrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess teasing breakup between the Awesome Truth. Match was a very fan-friendly dark match. Not really that much to speak of in ring, but very engaging with Truth's sort of comedy spots. Strowman, I think, is fun to watch here, but he did look really dumb for chasing JD away to allow Truth to lose the match like that.
Yeah, he just chased him into the crowd and then returned afterward. Pierce speaks with CM Punk, notes that Punk is not cleared, but I'm going to get on the phone with Drew to arrange a meeting next week, and asks Punk to stay home next week, and I'll deal with Drew, and if not, you'll lose your opportunity to have a match with him. So it certainly feels like by next week, they're probably going to be setting up this match.
Yeah, I have to think so. Mm-hmm.
Liv wants to go over double team moves with Dominik. I guess this was our Triple H Trish nod. Mm-hmm. And she starts stretching his leg, and Dom says, that feels good. And then Judgment Day walk in to see this. Haha. And Dominik tells Priest that once again, you're sounding like my dad. And Priest is starting to sympathize with deadbeat dad Ray. And Priest again has a secret, but he's going to save it for later. Dom's going to find out the secret himself. So wink, wink. I think everyone was knowing what the payoff was going to be for the end of the match.
Yeah, all this gets a good reaction, the audience is loving all of this Liv Dom physical tension.
Yeah. I don't know. Like if they like walked in on like this stretch, like what do they think is happening here?
I don't know. Should I spell it out?
I mean, it's like they're fully clothed here. I mean, like what do they think they're walking in on here?
Dry humping?
Okay, I guess. Yeah.
Did you think you'd be having this conversation after
I did actually think that we would have a deep dive.
Our wrestling media summit?
Yeah. I did like the two little children there with like their heads like popping in on like mom and dad.
Oh, it's total like, played for laughs, and I think it's all working really well.
Then we get the VHS tape of the week. It's Bo Dallas, and he is asked about his family and reveals that he took the discarded that no one wanted and to give them a purpose. And we get to see the reveal of Joe Gacy, Eric Rowan, and Dexter Lumis for the first time.
But now it's like dreads.
Yes. Yeah.
Probably not his real hair.
He says he must set the captives free so that there is no master. And Howdy asks if we are sick, and confirms they are. Then sick is what we will be. And that was the message.
The 6. They're going to be 6. Yeah.
They didn't reveal the spelling. Maybe that's on next week's VHS. We'll get a definitive style guide from the Wyatts.
Yeah. I thought that it was a worthwhile follow-up to the 2 sort of interview segments that you had for Bo Dallas. You got to see the faces of the characters that are behind these masks. And with the exception of Nikki Cross, they have not shown that one yet. So right. It was all edited to look really cool, and they've maintained and like sort of built this aura of this group really well in these several weeks by keeping everything within post-production. They've done really nothing live other than having Nikki Cross come out and give those videotapes. So we still have quite like the videos are really cool, but the question is still there about how they're going to translate this into a match or even a live arena setting. But giving us the face reveals and seeing the Bo Dallas, scene after this, I think does convey that these are going to be people that might be they might be regular people walking around the back, but they also wear these really crazy costumes, and they might occasionally appear in dry ice.
What if we build up to a pay-per-view and Nikki delivers a VHS tape and they just play like their home video of like backyard wrestling? And that's that's how they do the matches.
I guess the internet would have a field day trying to decipher meaning out of that. Yeah,
I think a bunch of tape traders at heart.
Is that it? Is that this gimmick? I think it deserves to be said that Bo's performances, I think, continue to really impress me. Yes, these are all edited, but I think the delivery he's been giving, and his facial expressions and body language are all really great. Of course, it feels like somebody, trying to like embody Bray Wyatt, right? But I almost feel like it's just enough for me to get the sense that this is the brother of Bray Wyatt, and that it's not an exact copy, but somebody who might be trying to take it to a different level, or at least because as a character, I definitely think I understand more motivation from Bo Dallas than I ever have of Bray Wyatt at all. Like, Bray's motivations are usually like, we're here to stop like people from the fat cats, or I don't know, whatever he used to say.
Those damn fat cats.
Whatever. We'd be trying to figure it out. But we know what Bo Dallas is fighting for, okay? Like, he lost somebody very close to him, and he is and they wanted to shelve, all that he created, so he's trying to bring it back. He's also trying to unite with other people who have been discarded, and they're trying to I guess, live up to the sort of dreams, I suppose, of his deceased brother. Like, I just think I can buy into it a bit more, and I think the performance thus far has been good.
He's been very good. Pierce gets confronted by Chad Gable, who said that the Wyatts are referring to him in these videos and no one's doing anything about it, so he's going to have to take care of it himself, and he also wants a vacation. Pierce walks into his office, and there's Bo Dallas seated in his office. And we close the door and never get a follow-up on what Bo is there for. Damage control video. They have all three talking about how damage control has to change. They've been disrespected, and they're not going to be pushed aside by Lyra, Caden Carter, and Katana Chance. Tonight, they push back, and change brings destruction. They're going to clip Lyra's wings and dance over Katana and Caden. Damage control has lost control, but tonight, they will take it back. But first, we have Ilja Dragunov against Braun Breaker. They went 10 and a half minutes. And right here at about 10 p.m., Pat just decides he's going to identify Braun Breaker. He's not just the unpredictable badass. He calls him a brick shithouse. And this got censored by Sportsnet. Ilja manages an enziguri, drills him in the face with a knee, and then there's a power bomb out of the corner to Breaker. Ilja comes to the top for a senton, and then Braun with a big gutbuster after a military press. He scales to the top. Ilja stops him and misses with the coast to coast, gets sent to the floor, and Braun sprints around the ring. Ilja drops him with a boot, and then Ilja is running at Braun on the floor when we get the return of the office chair, struck right into Ilja's face for the DQ. In 10 and a half minutes. Now, this would necessitate a rematch, but probably people would not have been too happy about that in Toronto. So, office chair ending. Braun continues the attack when Zayn hobbles his way down, selling his ribs from earlier to check on Ilja. And Ilja also got his leg all cut up here somewhere in all of this. And Braun posts Zayn, and Ilja gets involved. Both get sent over the desk by Braun Breaker. So, three-way match could be something that comes out of this.
Seems to be the direction that I would predict maybe coming out of this. And I think it offers like an attractive. The match is going to be good. Dragunov would get on the card. Does it justify Sami beating Braun clean from Money in the Bank?
I didn't think the timing was really right for Braun to just lose like that. I'm fine with people. You can lose. It's not like detrimental. I just think like there should be a solid reason for it, and it just felt like here's an attractive match, and it was just not the right time for Braun to lose this one, and now you've kind of got to, you're just like starting like all over again to build up another match between these two, and I think you're just coming off one where the interest for match number 2 is nowhere near the interest for match number 1.
I think they're betting that they can build enough interest through like the intensity of these sort of beatdowns from Braun Breaker. And I almost maybe feel like it might be one of those situations where Braun is very likely to win the title at SummerSlam, and therefore people won't remember him losing at Money in the Bank.
Priest does a video recapping Money in the Bank and notes the other champions that have had controversy attached to their reigns. He is focused on Gunther and invites him to show up at Raw next Monday. Then Pat McAfee, in case you didn't get the joke the first time, had a telestrator breakdown of Liv stretching Dominik's legs. Kofi Kingston, we get the update. He has an AC joint injury, so Final Testament, they sent in their VHS, and Karrion Kross is mocking Kofi's injury and said that the legends of the old guard will be the death of this industry and is holding the new blood back, and they are the true enemy of us all. Even John Cena realizes his time is up. And Xavier Woods, you're a hell of a talent. And you even beat me when Kofi Kingston couldn't. And Woods, you could create your own legacy or stay with Kofi. And if you do, we will hospitalize you just like Kofi. The New Day is dead. You're just the last one to realize it. So either leave Kofi or we will put you in a hospital.
Sure. Yeah. Being on the same show as the Wyatt Sicks, this group feels even less intimidating than they were on SmackDown, and even more corny. This is the type of promo that really didn't give us any sort of new information or argument or even like plot point. It just felt like generic trash talk. I also think that they overproduce and overfilter, these types of shots to the point where they almost kind of feel like a caricature of a scary group rather than something I should actually be scared about. Because you're getting this version of this type of spooky group so much better with the Wyatt Sicks, I think they should just take this group, the Final Testament, and into a much more sort of like grounded, realistic, light. Like, I've much preferred Karrion Kross's very simple, direct promos to the camera that he does for online exclusives than something like this, which I don't think gets into much substance and is a lot harder for me to buy into.
What did you think of Paul Ellering in this segment?
Looked like a old grandpa, as usual.
Hey, he's the new blood.
Sure, yes.
Damage Control against Lyra Valkyria, Katana Chance, and Caden Carter. We had the baby faces laying them out with triple drop kicks to the floor to set up the break. Zayn rocked Lyra Valkyria with this spinning back fist, which looked like a lot of fun. There was a triple vertical suplex spot with all 6 women involved. The keg stand is hit, but Io is in to make the save. Zayn and Carter are left in the ring, and Kai pulls down the rope, so Carter crashes and is thrown into the post. So then Sky presses Kyrie up in the air over the top to crash into Lyra and Katana on the floor. And as Katana is laid out on the mat, she is hit with over the moonsault as Io pins her in 8 minutes and 49 seconds. A lot going on in this one. They had their moments, as you're always going to get with like Chance and Carter. And I thought Lyra and Io especially had like a really good like 45 seconds together in this.
Yeah, I thought like coming off of the commercial break, there was a lot of really good activity between the 6 here. They were having a lot of trouble getting this crowd to react. And that's just kind of the state of the tag team division. People other than Liv Morgan on the show, it's kind of hard to get a big reaction.
The rest of the women's division match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So with that, Damage Control prevail, and they are jumped by Shayna Baszler, Zoe Stark, and Sonya Deville. And Starks tells Io, "You cost me everything," which Cole refers to the Michinoku driver, as he described it, off the ladder onto the bridge, which was a hell of a spot. I wish they had shown. They probably did show a highlight of this at some point, but it was brief.
They did.
Okay,
they showed it before this. Yeah,
they did. Okay, well, perfect. It was good to see. And then they laid her out, including Sonya hitting Deville's advocate.
Yes.
Cole noted, "It's been a long time since we've seen Deville's advocate." You really have to like say that one slowly to get.
I understand every wrestler like needs a catchy name, and often like that means like, I don't know, using something like a pun, but you can't say that name and like not kind of chuckle, right? I don't know.
When we used to name the show, and sometimes we'd have to spend 30 minutes in a studio thinking of names. Yeah. At 1:30 in the morning, would that have been one we just like, let's just go with it? Or would it be, no, we can do better than that?
That would be, let's just go with it one.
Okay.
Let me just ask, like, can you see a WrestleMania main event ending with the
Deville's advocate?
Yeah.
No, I can't. I cannot imagine that being the show closing moment that Michael Cole is screaming. Kathy Kelly interviewed Zelina and Ray. Zelina blames Dom for not being the champion, and they are a hot mess. Ray says, "Yeah, we're going to shut them up." Kelly is then with Stark, Baszler, and Deville. In the background, we get Chad Gable with the Creeds and Ivy Nile. And they have been screwed twice in the last month. Damage Control is just a start. They don't run the division, and this is a warning. We are here. And then we got 2 new women debuting on the show. They walked in and they had replica belts from the Money in the Bank store over the weekend, and they claimed this was their division.
Yes, you're referring to the women's tag team champions, Isla Dawn and Alba Fire.
Oh, is that who this was?
Yeah. Yeah, in the time that they've held these championships since Clash at the Castle, like, you almost forget that they're champions. They've done nothing with them to develop their characters, and the charisma is where it is. So, I mean, like, I think Triple H said something to the effect of, like, this was always what we wanted to do, like, but your booking does not suggest that you really had any deeper plans, for these two beyond that hometown pop at Clash at the Castle. So I've been very disappointed with this tag team run so far. I don't know, let's see what Deville, Zoe, and Shayna can do as a trio. I mean, it just kind of feels like quicksand being involved in this like women's tag team division. Nobody seems to really, get any sort of significant reaction.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I look at that is I just feel like adding more titles is almost just like cover for a lack of stories that we have for the existing people here. Like these titles to me are the only defining features that you have now for Isla Dawn and Elba Fire. And it's almost like it camouflages like, okay, well, it's a title and that's what they're fighting over now.
Well, it's a way to sell more titles, John. We always need more championship belts to sell, as we saw this weekend. Rob McDonald says the briefcase was $150, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Next week, would you pay that?
Oh, I'd get a dozen if I could.
With HST, forget about it.
Next week, they are in Dayton, Ohio. Priest and Gunther will have a face-to-face. Sheamus faces Bronson Reed, and Drew McIntyre will return. So we have gotten since Clash at the Castle, where he quit outright and then came back the next week. This one, at least, the suspension a whole week.
Oh, $50,000 though.
Oh, 50,000 too. Yeah. How many briefcases could he have gotten with that? Main event, Liv Morgan and Dominik Mysterio against Zelina Vega and Rey Mysterio. Dominik tries to remove his father's mask, and Michael Cole is just disgusted by such an act being committed. Vega hits the Meteora, Code Red gets avoided, and then Liv does the Three Amigos. She tries for Oblivion, it's blocked, and then Rey and Dom are in. There's a tilt-a-whirl head scissors and a Cabrata for a 2 by Rey. 619 is caught by Dominik, but then Vega goes for one right into Dominik's balls. And Rey hits the frog splash, but Liv makes the save. Vega sends Liv to the rope and hits her with a 619. Vega gets posted on the floor, and then Liv tosses a chair into the ring, and the referee, just like a dog that you like throw a ball at and he'll like run into the field after, just, oh, chair's moving. So he just decides to go take care of the chair because it might take on a life of its own and attack on its own. So while his back is turned, Liv crotches Rey on the top, and Dominik turns around and hits a frog splash for the win in 12 minutes and 52 seconds. And Liv jumps onto Dominik's arms, takes him down to the mat, and Dominik looks like he is about to kiss Liv when Rhea Ripley's theme starts playing, and both of them look shocked. And Liv runs away through the crowd, and Rhea gets into Dom's face, and apparently, for the second time when it comes to this angle, they go off the air at this point before we see the rest of this in Canada and probably internationally, because what happens is Dominik puts his arms out, and Rhea just blows right past him and heads to the back, and Dom is following her and begging for forgiveness, and that's how we end. But it sounds like it, again, I didn't see the US version where exactly it cut off, but it looked like it left you more in suspense, where you can see Rhea's upset and is looking at him, but you don't see her just brush past Dominik and like reject him.
If it did cut off, then it didn't seem as big of a deal as maybe the first time it got cut off, because that one was a kiss. This one, I think you could already infer that Rhea is pretty pissed off at what she saw, right? So
it's still very bizarre that they've had like these timing issues, like in such close proximity to one another, that just are not, that never happens. And they've had it twice, and with this angle too.
Live TV, right?
And being in that last segment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I guess like when it comes to matches, you can always pose for an extended length of time, but when you have to do this sort of action, it can be very difficult at time. I thought the mixed tag was really good. I thought the Ford played their roles really well. I think Zelina has actually been quite excellent, in this supporting role. She doesn't get a lot of opportunities to both wrestle and get mic time, and you can tell in her performances that she's been waiting for this opportunity. So even though the story doesn't exactly revolve around her, I think she's making the most out of it. Rey and Dom continue to show really great chemistry. It's a rivalry that I think is immediately engaging for an audience whenever they're involved. And then Liv and Dom continue to maybe be one of the highlights of the TV side of WWE. They just keep, like, they receive some of the loudest reactions on Raw over the past few months, and this match I think captured that and played with that energy really well. Gave you the big return by the very end, so probably left a lot of people satisfied at that reaction.
Yeah, so coming out of this, I mean, we're less than a month away from SummerSlam. They still have a lot of time to build this up, but you kind of have a good sense of where we're going in a lot of directions. Like, you've got Priest and Gunther. Punk and Drew would seem pretty likely at this point, which we'll probably get next week to be official. Liv and Rhea seems would seem like that's SummerSlam. Do you hold it off any longer than that?
I think you might
Or you do the mixed tag?
Maybe you'll get a mixed tag. Maybe like you could play around with that scenario to maybe drag that story out a bit longer. But perhaps like Liv versus Rhea might be my bet. And then Dom helps Liv retain the championship.
I think it's more interesting than the mixed tag. Like I think the mixed tag is, if anything, you do it later once you've solidified Liv with Dominik together, as opposed to that just seems like too much to do in 3 weeks to get there. I like better the idea that Dominik is trying to win back Rhea and then ultimately costs her at SummerSlam. But yeah, between that and then like
Sami.
on this Sami, the feels like 3-way program, Cody and Solo, Logan, Paul and LA Knight, and then Bailey and Nia.
We're
Like
gonna need 2 nights for this card.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean maybe
Might be 7 matches there. How are we gonna get through that in one night?
oh, how many video packages are we gonna have? Might have to book a second night in Cleveland. So anyway, that was the show coming off of Money in the Bank. Overall, I would say a pretty successful Canadian swing for WWE over the last number of nights, and putting a lot of things in place. I didn't think this was like some blow away great show in ring, but it did have, you know, your Punk stuff that was advanced, and the big thing still, like the Liv Morgan Dominik thing, like that is easily your biggest story on Raw. And you know, other than the bloodline, I mean, your biggest story in the company, I would say.
I would say so too. Yeah. It's I would say a highlight of Raw, and it continues to garner some of the biggest reactions as it did tonight. And I think it's in really good shape heading to SummerSlam.
Which night of SummerSlam would you put Sheamus and Pete Dunne?
Which night of SummerSlam?
I want to sit down. I want to sit down heart to heart. That's what I want between those two. The brawling brutes all coming back together.
You might get that, maybe, eventually.
Okay, well, those were our thoughts on Raw. Now we shift on over to hear your thoughts on the show. You can send in your super chats if you are watching live, and we will go to the forum.
All right, let's go to forum.postwrestling.com, where our patrons can leave their feedback after every single one of these podcasts. John, would you like to start us off?
Jeremy in Texas. So Rollins is upset with Punk for costing him his only shot at Damian Priest's title, but then Priest decides joking, like nothing happened. Does that mean the whole opening segment meant nothing? It's the transitive property, right? I'm also not sure if we missed something at the end of the show. You did, Jeremy. Rhea seemed to be blowing off Dom, but the show ended abruptly on USA. Weird, it's been these performers where the timing has been super tight. I appreciate the coverage of the weekend despite what is out there on the various socials. People who suggest the only reason you ask questions that matter, actual hard news questions just for attention, are beyond uninformed and ignorant. Okay, I assume this is about my question towards John Cena. All I will say, it's when you are going to like ask questions and such, like I do not get too bent out of shape on how people react to that. If people want to criticize me or like even like the name calling and stuff like that, like I'm not that bothered by that at all. I think in those situations, you're always going to garner that. I think there's people that appreciate those questions being asked. I think there's also people that they don't want that stuff at all. You're always going to have that mix. So whatever people's reactions are,
you're entitled to an opinion.
That's it. Like, and I'm not above being criticized, but I don't regret the question that I asked.
Yeah, you're here to get the story. I don't think you're trying to be the story. All right, let's go to Manny from Pacoima, who says, as someone who enjoyed Braun's NXT run, it was a bit disappointing seeing his Gorilla Press Power Slam finisher reduced to one simple move that was kicked out of early on in the match. While I enjoy how heavily they've been pushing him, they really need to let him wrestle like he did on NXT instead of the slow-paced matches he's been having on the main roster. Glad to see both Sonya and Rhea make their comeback to in-ring action. I've been loving the Wyatt Sicks videos, and as someone who plays the 2K games, it would be cool to see them incorporate something like the videotape segments into the games. Once again, the USA Network cut the feed once the clock struck at the top of the hour. Overall, a pretty solid episode of Raw.
They are hard and fast. They're not giving up that overrun. We go next to Jordan from the Bronx. Overall, the show was fine. Seth's stipulation going away with a handshake kind of negates the opening promo with Punk. Rhea Ripley's return was built too nicely, and then the show ends right in the middle of her interaction with Dom. I would love to take Damian Priest more seriously as the top champion of Raw, but his matches and promos will leave a lot to be desired. His promo tonight about every champion has interference in this matches came off as lame. As a longtime fan of his, I was hoping that he would truly be elevated with the title. Unfortunately, it feels like once he loses, he'll be right back to mid-card hell.
If you lost the title to Gunther at this point, yeah, if you're cutting this off short, I would suggest would he be in mid card hell? I don't know, but I don't know if he's necessarily done enough to elevate himself permanently to an upper tier status. I think like having him play babyface so much has taken a certain edge off of him, and it's made him feel kind of like they're trying too hard to make him likable. So, let's see what they could do. Maybe he doesn't end the reign. Maybe he beats Gunther. Would that change things for people? Let's go to Muggin, who says the Aftermath episode was strong. The Punk Rollins segment was especially terrific for how it presented those two beyond the traditional babyface heel dynamic. It felt like two men with different perspectives. I do like how it retconned the gentleman's agreement. Dom's ecstasy over finally beating his father thanks to Liv turning to complete dread when Rhea's music hit was glorious. Stealing from the cookie jar isn't so fun when you're caught. Her revenge tour is canceled.
Rhea doesn't get cable back home, so this was her first.
Well, the segment got cut off, so she never saw the kiss.
That's true. She never saw the kiss. Jared writes in, I attended the show here in Ottawa. As a live experience, it definitely falls onto the slow side of the pace scale, especially the third hour. The show had a hot start with the great Punk Rollins segment. Lots of excitement for the Nikki Cross appearance. I felt like I was being held hostage, having to watch the Howdy video live. Huge reactions for Sami and the return of Rhea. Braun's speed, next level impressive in person. The last time I saw yes kicks in this building, it was Danielson Shibata. Overall, a fun show, but the last hour dragged. Samantha Irvin is the MVP for the show for being able to keep energy up during the breaks. Damage Control were in the ring forever before their match started. Pat led the crowd in singing happy birthday to a cameraman named Sweaty. Sign of the night. Prime Minister Trudeau took my money in the bank.
All right, last one comes to us from Matthew England, who says, Way had asked me to clarify what it meant by Dynamite being a Roots show on Wednesday, so I'll share my thoughts. The show didn't have filler. Every segment had meaning, and so for people who don't know, I guess Matthew left feedback talking about how this past week's edition of Dynamite, a very well-received edition of Dynamite, he found was the show going back to its roots, and I questioned it. What exactly was it going back to its roots for? So he says, every segment had meaning and furthered the story by adding layers or having chronological sense. In the early AEW days, this is how big programs were built organically. For example, Cody Jericho, Max Cody, Kenny Hangman. I also thought that given all the circumstances, Dynamite delivered a strong number on Wednesday night. I'll be honest, I don't even remember Dynamite that much now anymore. I've seen so much wrestling since then. For me, like I do these shows and it's just kind of like I can't really counter whether or not your point makes sense to me, but I appreciate the clarification. On Raw, he says Punk and Seth was top tier TV. I've been a fan of Punk's work for years, and this was no different. Side note, I don't think Punk lost his train of thought. I believe Punk was genuinely hesitant to say I'm sorry. Judgment Day Slow Burn continues to keep their matches and segments interesting. There's a lot of depth to the group. Liv Dom Rhea is as hot as ever, and the quarter hours back up what we already know. Liv is a star, and sex sells. Or at least, I guess, the tease of sex, okay? I'm still not completely sold on the Wyatt Sicks, but the video packages are a much better approach. I'm curious to see how this comes off in a match.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for the feedback. Again, we will mention the fact that the G1 Climax Contest is open. Postwrestling.com/G1 is where you can go join. It's free to enter. Submit your picks by midnight on July the 18th. You have 10 days to submit all of your picks, and then we will be doing updates throughout all of our podcasts, which begin July 21st at postwrestlingcafe.com. If you are a cafe member, you will be getting podcasts throughout the G1, with many of the voices here at Post Wrestling, keeping you covered and covering the entire tournament from start to finish. So that is all coming up in the month of July. Also, this week, Wai and I are going to be back Tuesday night for a special double shot. As we had promised, we are going to finally take a look at the WrestleMania Behind the Curtain documentary that premiered last week. So both of us will have a chance to see it, and we'll do a quick review of that on Tuesday night. And then later on this week, we will have all of the regular shows coming your way. JP Houlihan from the Grapple Spotlight, he will be on with WH Park and Rich Fan on Thursday, chatting Deadpool, as the countdown is we are nearing the end of the Deadpool and Wolverine countdown, with several more films to go. And then coming up this weekend, we will have the return of Collision Course, and on Sunday night, our media summit will be released for all those out there to listen to.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that is it, everyone. Thanks to all of you for tuning in tonight. We are back later on this week, and that is it. From Toronto, we say farewell.